here is fiction. Science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction. Fiction. Fiction.
Second self salutations to all you cognonauts out there, and welcome to Exofathom, the show that dares to explore the outside reaches of understanding. I am your host, Nick, and I am joined by my two lovely co-hosts. Mike, how are you?
Man, it's another Friday, so it's time for some, self-reflection and all that. So I'm hanging in there,
Awesome, possum. Yeah, it is a good Friday. Hoping everybody's feeling good out there. And we have our other co-host, lovely co-host, Ayla. How are you?
I'm doing fine and lovely. Also,
Good.
What up to our cognonauts listening out there, thinking out there? It's good to be
Absolutely.
back.
Yeah. And thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking about alter egos. And today's conversation is going to be pretty casual. I have some things I want to pepper into the conversation that will hopefully be informative to all of you guys concerning sort of the origin of alter egos. I was able also to find a little bit of like the proto concepts in mythology. And then we can probably talk a little bit about how it might be used as a good psychological device to help people overcome things. But without much further ado, let's just jump right into the topic. And my first question to you guys is, what does your alter ego do for a living?
Fighter pilot.
Fighter pilot. All right. Why?
Well, as many of you know, I'm partial to my honey badger nickname. There's a spirit that craves adventure and to take flight. And I've always wanted to be a pilot, but wasn't able to for a variety of reasons. So yes, if I had an alter ego, I would definitely be one of those cool fighter pilots. Now, the thing is, I feel like I would just do like aeronautic shows because I can't really fight. I mean, like it would be hard for me. Yeah, exactly. Like I want the skills, but like the way you would use those skills is not something I would like. Maybe I could be like a fighter pilot that crop dusts or something. I don't know.
I'm sure you could be a fighter pilot. I'm sure the training just kicks in and you don't even think about what's happening.
And then you can retire and be a Blue Angel. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Sounds cool. Okay, Very nice.
Awesome. All right, so fighter pilot for Ayla. Mike, what would your alter ego's profession be?
That's a good question. Whatever's needed. I don't know. My alter ego adapts to the environment around it.
That's cheating. That's like saying I have all the powers. Yeah, I can't say that.
No, I would argue that I have one power and it's
my power is all of the powers.
Well, I just don't, honestly, I don't know if I could adapt to every situation properly. Like take Ayla's example as a fighter pilot. There might be some biological things that stop me from that might stop my alter ego from doing that unless it. Now we're getting onto like the weird the M. Night Shyamalan movie where the Beast with Professor X.
I don't know.
You don't know what movie I'm talking about? It's like right on the tip of my tongue.
More clues.
I know, yeah.
So like he has like multiple personality disorder, but one of the personalities is split. Yes, thank you. Yeah, no. So it's more like it. The one power it can do is adapt. So whatever the situation requires, then my alter ego would adapt to it and try to be proficient at that thing. But there are things that it might be imperfect.
Yeah,
you adapting at Subway or like what's up?
It could be. I mean, I guess it's like spy work or something. Like whatever. Like
do you want to be
I don't know.
I like it. That
I don't know
sounds
if I
cool.
want to be a spy. That's a stretch. But
Well, your alter ego. Sorry, because it would be adaptable, I suppose. That makes sense.
Well, this is getting into kind of the issue that I wanted to address when I asked you guys this question. So there is yes, sorry.
I just had a moment where I'm like, this is where he shits all over your choice of alter ego. I'm like,
no, not at all. Not at all.
I'm going to change my answer to an actor. Can I be an actor?
There's no wrong answers. There's no wrong answers.
Ooh, actor's a good one for what you were saying earlier. Okay.
Yeah, spy or actor. I feel like they're the same thing, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
They can be.
Spy, actor, lawyer. No,
yeah, whatever requires a moral area and the ability to adapt. That's all you need.
No, absolutely.
Well, the distinction I kind of want to bring to the forefront, since you guys are already sort of touching on it, Ayla's choice is a choice that is still within her personality, which I find interesting. And Mike, it sounds like you're sort of leaning towards that same direction. So I wonder if that sort of shades your outlook on what a considerable alter ego is, because an alter ego could also be something that you may not want.
Okay. So
it could be either or.
Serial killing's not a job, though.
That's true. That is true.
Just serial killing to get paid for it, right?
Well, that would be a hitman, I think.
Right.
I think that would be the alter ego.
But Nick could argue that it might still be within my personality.
Maybe
you can inherit a fly.
but this is kind of an interesting thing that I've been trying to sort of parse out, and I like that you guys are bringing the conversation up, because are you able to sort of create an alter ego that doesn't have any elements of yourself? Well, I wonder.
Well, before we go there, because I don't want this to color your answer, what would your alter ego do?
Well, see, I was thinking in the same sort of direction. Well, actually, I was. Let me reverse that. I was thinking the opposite direction of what you guys were thinking. So I was thinking of like the deficiencies I have in my personality, and then thinking of if I turned those deficiencies into strengths and then maximize them at like 11, what would that look like? And so I came up with something. I would definitely be more extroverted, outgoing, more disciplined, and more organized. So I maybe, running like a network, or
you'd be a manager. No,
some sort of like that. But just the things that I sort of lack in myself naturally. And that's the way I look at it too. Where you could also use the alter ego to sort of amplify or sort of fortify deficiencies you might have.
Oh, it's so interesting. Yeah, because I mean, like, alter ego would suggest that you're trying to think of something that's a little bit, like opposite or on the other side of what you are.
Well, quite literally, the translation from Latin is the other eye. So I like this question, because you could go to one side or the other, and hopefully in this conversation I will show you guys my line of thinking as far as how this pairs off into an almost dualistic thing, where you have one aspect of the self that is reaching for the highest heights, and then you have the sort of shadow aspect of the self that are the things that you may lack, or according to Jung, the things that you would want to keep hidden or out of your life completely.
So can Mike and I get a chance to revise and choose a different answer?
Absolutely. I'm not holding anybody to any answers. I just
well, I mean, by that standard, I was like, oh, I guess I would be like a very reclusive, off the grid writer type, the type that's like, I'm not going to use electricity anymore. I'm going to go net zero on my carbon footprint, and I'm just going to write and be really crazy and focused and isolatory.
And I would consider that, even though that's not necessarily negative in any respect, I would consider that as the contrast or the shadow to what your normal personality or normal quote unquote personality is.
Oh yeah, I love electricity. As a kid, I had moments where we didn't have it, and like, yeah, it's kind of a nice thing to have.
AC or DC though? Which one do you love more?
What's that?
Just kidding.
AC/DC?
Yeah, which one? Which one? You like alternating current or direct current? Which one's your?
Direct current's pretty choice. What about you, Mike? If you had to choose your alter ego, like
oh, I thought you were going to ask me if I want alternate current or direct current.
Oh, well, that too, I guess. It's good to know.
It's good to know.
Like if I see a fake Mike who's trying to convince me he's a Mike on a different line or something, I'll be like, was it AC or was it DC? And then they'll be like, well, I watched the podcast, so you already know.
No, I don't. That makes it, I guess. Like I enjoy going into the background a lot. So somebody that takes charge, extroverted. Like the only thing is like a bank robber.
You could do that, sure.
Like a take like.
No. I feel like you're specifically thinking of like the John Hamm bank robber in Baby Driver because he's a little flashy and extroverted. But a bank robber?
I'm thinking more like 1920s, like we robbed the bank but gave everybody $10,000 that we took hostage and got out of there, kind of bank robber.
That zoot suit times? Would you be in a zoot suit doing that?
I couldn't be in an LA. It's still illegal.
Right.
But
wear those.
Yeah, that's the one law I obey when I rob banks is I don't wear.
It's probably for the best. Yeah, too conspicuous.
Yeah, it makes it really obvious to rob banks out there.
Right.
But no, it's a really interesting question because I've never like given that any sort of considerability. Because just we'll get more into it, but the notion of alter ego has changed for me over the years.
And it, as well, it probably should, because when I was thinking about this too, I kind of thought to myself, well, you could think of yourself in 10 years as an alter ego to who you are right now. And so you're almost kind of always, I mean, we all know that we're always changing. So you could see a jump in time as a reflection of some sort of alter ego that you might have in the future.
You know what I wish I did was that at every like 5-year increment to write a letter to different versions of yourself. And then to open those and be like, oh, what did my punk ass self say to me? And like, because it would be interesting to think about like what values you would have had then and like were really pushy about including in your letter. And then
see, my super organized alter ego would have a journal, so I would never have to worry about something like that.
It's actually super funny that you bring up that idea. I had the first psychology class I took. There was a paper that we wrote, and our psychology professor was like, when you get this paper back, don't mind the grade. The grade is whatever. But I want you to hold on to this for a decade. And when that decade passes, I want you to look at it again.
Right.
And I looked at mine, and oh my God, I don't know. Like I wrote it in the style of the main character from A Clockwork Orange, Alex Large. So it's like super pompous, super egotistical, but at the same time, I feel like it ran very close to my personality at the time. So it's like rather interesting
at the time.
Yeah, like yes, same. Yeah, no, I'm still pompous and egotistical as the day is long.
And you know what's
my
funny?
Ego now though looks at my ego back then is like, what is this trash? Get it out.
There you go.
I will say, reading stuff that you wrote when you were younger, particularly like a poem or something you thought was really creative, it's very cringeworthy, and it's just like it hurts. It hurts to read that and be like, I hope I did not share this with anybody.
That's why I destroyed all my journals, because I would read them again and be like, oh, loser, just throw them out.
Nah, man, you got to hold on to those cringe moments. All like the emo-ness. That's all you.
It is.
You are.
I don't regret any emo song that I ever loved. I will say I can still appreciate like all the Cure songs to this day, which they're prolific, but I'll even throw in some Panic. I'm happy with that and stuff. So
my God, if I opened up like my high school journal or like poetry book that I wrote in, all like just the juiciest cringe there. So
yeah.
I'll share something.
Oh God.
I
used 2 girls in high school just made 100 pages of
oh no. Oh no. That would be a good poetry book though, is to read the same author's poetry on the same subject as they get older and see it just evolve.
That'd be cool.
But I will share something funny. I didn't, for a long time, I didn't know that poetry was anything but Shakespeare. And so anytime I would try to write poetry, I would always try to write it in Old English.
in prose.
Yeah. So I was trying to make it fit iambic pentameter and like I would use like thou and thee. It was awful. It was so it was awful. I was so proud of it too.
You should still use thou and thee. Just go for it.
Nah.
There's right in the
there's a throwback.
I have more pride than that.
Well, there's a writing exercise. It's called like writing in the style of. So you just take any writer, could be any writer, and then you just try to write in their style and try to use their same systems and forms and maybe even words and diction.
You know what I have wanted to do is bust a Hemingway night where you buy a cheap typewriter, get some paper, bottle of scotch or whatever like that. And you just sit there and you're like, I'm going to write a book tonight. Cover to cover. I'm just going to write the whole thing. Whatever it is that comes out, I'm doing it. And just see what happens. I think that would be fun.
I feel the same way, but much more in the vein of like Stephen King. So I get like a mountain of Coke and I put it right next to the typewriter.
Oh God.
And then I dip my
Stephen
face
King
in it.
did that?
Oh yeah. What do you think? Have you read it? It is like a hodgepodge of a million different ideas all at once.
I mean, it is a
lot of
hodgepodge,
cocaine
but
going on.
he always seemed like a Steven Spielberg type of vibe, like super wholesome. I mean, I don't even know much about Spielberg's personal life, but they both just have wholesome faces, so that's breaking my vision. That's their alter ego.
Cocaine was definitely a part of that writing process.
I'm sure. Yeah. As many writing processes are.
Hey, it's necessary sometimes, Yeah,
well,
I mean, writers are close to like shamans, and they both use drugs to bring in different like fire. It's just another like tool in the tool belt, I guess. Like, ask anybody in pre-med or like people in medical school or stuff like that. They're taking nootropics. They're taking psychoactive drugs to change their brain chemistry to get a job done. It's the same thing here. Just the illicit thing brings on a taboo that changes the perspective of the person doing the thing, or the perspective of you of the person doing the thing.
Actually, this is like an interesting side conversation, but there's a new show on Netflix that came out, and I think it's based on the book by Michael Pollan. That's just what's in my head. That might not be right, but it's all about the history of that and how it actually went from some of those things being actual medicines prescribed, and then like just the history of kind of research about it, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we've taken a bit of a detour. We can come back to the concept of alter ego. Again, I let you guys know it's Latin for other I. And the earliest iteration or sort of mentioning of it is Cicero in the 1st century, where he refers to it as a second self or a trusted friend. And I really like this concept because, again, we're touching with this 2 sides to this alter ego thing. You can either have this positive, trusted friend, or like we'll see in a little bit, you could have a Mr. Hyde situation. Where you have all of the negative aspects of you coming to the forefront instead of the positive ones. And so, yeah, that was Cicero in the 1st century. And then we have, it's most commonly been popularized by a man named Anton Mesmer. Those who are familiar with the word mesmerism will understand what he is famous for. He coined hypnotism, basically invented the whole concept.
I want to invent something like that. That's dope. And then have your name be the word that describes that thing. That's freaking baller.
It's a pretty baller move to have, like, you know, your name be a word, like a verb.
Yeah, Nicholas Iser. Like, what would that be? Michael Iser.
But yeah, so he noticed that when he would put his subjects into a hypnosis state, that there were some people who would adopt completely different personalities under hypnosis than what their personalities were when they were quote unquote lucid. And so that's where we get this concept of alter egos really taking off, is with Mesmer's reporting that some of his patients under hypnosis were displaying completely different personalities. And of course, this was a long time ago, so we can't really verify a whole lot. We can't really verify whether the people being hypnotized weren't just putting on an act. But then I can ask you guys, like, why do you think that would even be a possibility? Or do you think it was just all mumbo jumbo anyways?
Golly, well, I do know that there's only so many people that are susceptible to hypnosis, and others, it just doesn't work. So, you know, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that maybe some people were just trying to fit in and be cool and making stuff up. But then again, I mean, like, our brain makes up our conscious reality, right? Because it's just like, when you think about it, you know, like, your eyes aren't, like, when you see something, that's your brain replicating the data from your eyeballs, you know, in a system of cones and rods and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's something to it. I think, you know, when we've done all those gateway readings, you know, you definitely are able to appreciate the power of the subconscious. As for one coming out versus the other, I wonder if it has to do with how integrated the person is, you know, at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. You might be onto something with that. I could see somebody who experiences a high level of trauma having some sort of, personality change under a hypnosis. Most famously, we also know that there were experimentations in sort of trying to create alter egos in many governments in our history. And they did practice techniques of hypnosis, but also techniques of trauma. So you might be right, Ayla, that a level of trauma might create some sort of subconscious persona that helps the person cope with that trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or even just like if they're living an ascetic lifestyle, which is that they're really denying a lot of themselves in their daily life, it might be something that comes out when they're able to let their guard down a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Mike, what do you think?
I don't know how much I want to say about this.
Okay. Fair enough.
We're starting to tread on like, I guess, dangerous ideas, you can call it. I feel like it really depends on the person's ability to disassociate. And those moments where the alter ego comes out during hypnosis is like an induced disassociated state of the person being hypnotized.
Yeah.
And something like trauma can make those threads that tie the human to the self, if that makes sense. Like when you look in the mirror, you look at yourself, and then you connect beyond the physical form of yourself to the idea of yourself, that sort of thing. I think trauma might be able to loosen those cords a little bit, where you can slip into an altered state where you're somebody else. Yeah. I think I want to end my idea there.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of depth to that, and that we're probably not going to be talking a whole lot about in this episode. But I do wonder if there's an element of it too that is just that our human brains are sort of fluid in respect to maybe our outward personas and outward personalities. Because I was really trying to dig back deep for this instance or this for like a proto concept of alter egos. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be. So I was really only able to point to a couple pieces of mythology or philosophy from the ancient times that would be a close facsimile to what we're talking about here. But I got across, let's see here, what do I have? So I have, okay, so it's pronounced Nahwal. So I'm going to make sure it's spelled Nagual, but it's pronounced Nahwal, so I'll have to remember that. But it's Mesoamerican folklore and religion, and it's the belief that a human being is tied to an animal counterpart. So you could say like the idea of spirit animals, but more specifically to the Mesoamericans was that they could change and shapeshift into these animals. And usually the animal was chosen by your birth date, also your disposition. And so this philosophy that each person had a Nahwal, sorry for the pronunciation, it's pre-Columbian, and it's through the Olmec and the Toltec. And it's a depictions that are interpreted as humans beings transforming themselves into animals, and it's linked with the Mesoamerican calendar system, and used as for divination rituals. Again, it's tied to the date of birth, which will decide which animal you'll be associated with. But this is where I found the duality. So there's tonal and then there's Nawal, and tonal is the sun spirit. So that's where I was getting this question at the beginning with you guys, this concept of like the uber you and then the sort of shadow you. In Mesoamerica, they have this same concept with the shapeshifting. You have this tonal, which is this light spirit or day spirit, and then you have the Nahwal, which is the shadow or the night spirit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and there's a very distinct thing that each person has one of these, and they have both of them at the same time.
Was the words hyphenated at all, or no?
Yeah, it's NA, not hyphen, but NA apostrophe WAL.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just one word.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple words.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that was one of the earliest instances I could find with this concept. And notably as well, I think what was the distinction was that, let's see here. Okay, so it's noted that practitioners of powerful magic were normally born on days related to animals with strong or harmful aspects. So again, you get these correlations to persona and personality to an outward sort of external totem or figure. And so if you were powerful in magic, you were able to transform into something like a jaguar, which was considered a Nahwal, which was like a night deity.
Okay. Berserkers were very the same. Like they would pick their animal, like Nordic, berserkers. They were very similar. They would pick their animal spirit, be it a bear or a wolf or whatever, and through ritual change themselves into that alter ego of the animal.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and very aptly put, there is a lot of hallucinations and hallucinogens that are involved with bonding your spirit to that animal. I think specifically in the tonal and the Nahwal ideas is that the life force, you're also attached to life force. So if the animal dies, you die, and vice versa. This gets a little bit closer to concept of like the Western concept of like the doppelganger, where we get more modern interpretations of these doubles that we're talking about.
Ooh, I would even go further than that too and say something like soulmates, or like, have you ever met those like that married couple where one person dies and the next person dies like less than 6 months after or something.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Absolutely,
like happens a lot.
Like like the kindred spirit sort of thing where two become one.
Right. And yeah, it's a little bit different than what we're talking about with the alter ego, but I think that there is a proto concept there that the alter ego just becomes this sort of tulpa that you create in order to fulfill those things that your dyad would fulfill, whatever that thing that external attachment would have filled, and then you're kind of taking it into the internal mindscape sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's interesting. Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm thinking about Dexter. Such a great show. And he refers to it as his dark passenger. And it's funny because I would characterize that as very much a Mr. Hyde situation and a trusted friend. And I think it's kind of interesting to think about how one would engage with their tulpa or Nawal or their alter ego and whether there's because it seems like there's the nature of the alter ego, and then there's your relationship, if it's like a mutually beneficial thing versus conflicting desires. Like with Mr. Hyde, he wanted to go do bad things, the other guy just wanted to be chill.
Yes.
Into like a classic power dynamic.
Yeah.
There has to be an ego that raises up for the other.
Yeah, and since you guys are mentioning it, I could just pop that in right now, the concept of Jekyll and the shadow. So what I took from the Curious Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is the title of the novel, is that Dr. Jekyll is so repressed that once he takes this potion, all the things that he's been repressing in his psyche are coming out, so much to the point that throughout the book he continues to try to repress these dark urges, this Mr. Hyde, to the point where Mr. Hyde takes control of the body, and he has to start taking the potions just to become Dr. Jekyll again. So I did want to bring that in there because Ayla, you were talking about this sort of how the relation between the alter ego. Is it something of benefit, or is it something that might harm you? And one of the possibilities, if it is something that's harming you, is that it's possibly something that you're repressing yourself, that you're keeping from your normal persona. I'm using air quotes when I say normal, guys. So just so you know.
That follows very much in line with like Jungian thought. And if you want to know more about the sun and moon symbolism in the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, you can always listen to our sun and moon episode.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, these things all kind of touch each other in a lot of different ways.
That's cute. Sorry, there's that song.
No.
Oh, because it goes the other way. Never mind.
Hey, this is like the tip of the iceberg. Wait till you find out there's more than just one like Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh, of course. Well, then you get into pluralism, and then it's just
Ooh, or like Dijon commenting
here. Moon Knight and Batman, they're the same person.
Yeah. They are the same person, Dijon. You should know that.
Oh, so you want to get into some like some strange Batman lore real quick?
Oh, okay. Sure.
So Batman is known as the Dark Knight. There's a villain known as the White Knight.
Uh-oh.
And the White Knight is the same as Batman, but flipped. So his parents were criminals and cops killed his parents. Interesting. It sort of becomes the opposite as far as money goes to the Dark Knight. It's somewhat interesting. It's like a fun gimmick.
Yeah, right. I like it.
And then you have in literary sense, you have with the story. I don't remember who it is. Carol, the Prince and the Pauper. You have these two characters that look very similar to each other, and then they trade places because they want to see what each other's life is. And one lives as a pauper, one lives as a prince. And so you have that same sort of concept too, where it's like alter ego sort of represents a I don't want to say unfulfilled because that makes it seem negative, but maybe an unrealized potentiality of the self.
Yeah, it's like one branch down the multiverse of yourself.
Right.
Yeah. No. One of my favorite stories that follows these themes is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. Hilarious, like a proper like stage play. But if you read it, it's great. It's these two guys who are arguing over who's Ernest, which is the name of the person that this girl falls in love with, and hilarity ensues. But same thing.
Yes. Absolutely. Ayla, you got anything?
Yeah. What's that called again? I'm sorry. I've heard of it before. What something about being
the importance of being earnest.
The importance of being earnest. I would recommend reading just the stage play. Sure, there's stage plays that like do it great, but the writing is so strong that you can read it and just enjoy it.
Yeah, nice. I know. Play, it's funny. I like to watch plays, but reading plays is almost, like you said, more enjoyable. Like Neil Simon plays, they're farces, so they're very enjoyable live. But when you're reading like the notes and the descriptions that the actors are following, it's very entertaining. But also, speaking of actors, I'm wondering, Nick, did you come across the origins of the comedy and tragedy masks of theater?
No, I didn't necessarily dive into that. But that would be a good representation of, again, that sort of duality that we're poking around at. Even though it isn't really dual, but on the surface it is until you sort of zoom in a little bit further. It's a good representation.
It's like a dualism, and then once you get crazy, you find the pearl. I always have issues saying that word. The multipleisms. How about that?
Right. Yeah, it's two dots. It's two dots, zoomed out, but then you zoom in, and you realize that those dots are, a whole universe.
Fucking right.
But yeah, so let's see. Is there what else did I want to bring up? Oh, I wanted to ask you guys, since we were just talking about the tonal and sort of novel qualities, in particular with animal totems, I wanted to ask you guys, what would your day spirit and your night spirit be, in regards to animal?
Are you doing like base level psychology? Are you doing
yeah. I'm building profiles on you guys. Come on.
Jesus Christ. What's wrong with you, man?
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, now I don't want to answer.
We're in front of an audience. Don't you know the audience dilutes our answer because we have to perform in front of somebody?
No.
Makes us all just non. No, I'm just kidding.
That's a really good point, though, Mike. I mean, it definitely does add a layer of complexity that would make one wonder about the nature of the answers we are providing.
I'm just surprised I got past the first questions without you guys asking like the terms of alter ego. I thought we were going to get stuck in the minutia of like, define the term of alter ego.
What do you mean by alter?
Yeah.
What do you mean by ego? And what do you mean by the combined? I don't see a hyphen there. So there's two separate words. You're going to have to explain the combination of the two ideas.
Yeah.
Alter and ego.
I know better. I'm trying to be as precise as possible. Yeah, I think it's an apt question.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
So if you could pick a sort of a tonal day spirit and then a night Nahual spirit, what would you choose?
I think I might go, and this is actually pretty personal, so I won't say too much, but I would probably venture that my day spirit would be a wolf and my night spirit would be a butterfly.
Why night for the butterfly?
Because it was what I dreamed. I dreamed of millions of butterflies the morning of the worst day of my life. And so it's really funny because also I've noticed that when people cross over, I tend to see more butterflies after that. So it has this symbol of death, but transformation through it. And also, like transition, rebirth. But like there's a required, it's very rich. So.
No, I like that. It's sort of the chaos agent, right? Especially if you think about the butterfly effect flapping its wings and creating a hurricane on the other side of the world. Yeah, absolutely.
And the way they fly, it's very chaotic. So it can be very similar to like the monkey mind, where you're just kind of mind racing, thinking really fast. And that would be the shadow side, at least for me, because I can. Well, one of my favorite quotes is that the mind can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. So I like that sort of imagery of like, well, if you still your mind, if you still the butterfly, you can appreciate the beauty. It's just kind of my little motto these days.
See, you guys were trying to push against that, and you got a real piece of nice wisdom there.
You got a real piece of nice wisdom.
Gem. Yeah, I like it. All right.
10 out of 10. What soundbite again?
Great explanation. Yes. Mike, what about you, man?
Fuck if I know,
man. Follow that, buddy. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? Don't worry, I'll fuck it up.
Just like, don't give me a compliment. I'll run with it.
I don't know. I guess by day, like a tortoise.
Mm-hmm.
And then by night, an owl. I'm definitely far more night orientated than day, but I do like the tortoises can move pretty quick when they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, and they always have their shell that they duck into whenever they're scared. So I feel like it's
forever.
Yeah, yeah, but they move very slow most of the times and shit like that. And then at night is I feel like where I become alive. And then I think those are the two.
I like it. Yeah. Those are good. It's not an easy question for sure. Like the day spirits, I could see maybe like I would think like some sort of flying animal, like a hummingbird or a hawk or something like that. Something that's like
yours would definitely
focused.
Be hawk, because hawks are always dive bombing you. Like,
yeah, that's true. I could take that. Yeah, I like hawks a lot. I think that they're pretty. They're stoic and sort of focused.
Well, why not the bald eagle?
I mean, the bald eagle is very rock and roll. I just don't know if I'm as bombastic as a bald eagle. That's the problem.
Well, you better step it up, man. You better get it up.
Right.
Birds of prey out here.
I know. Yeah, I think that a hawk would be good, like some sort of flying animal. But then for night, I'm thinking like you got to go with like a leopard or jaguar. Leopard is good. I like leopard because they're stronger than jaguars, anyways.
But there's no time for rest. I feel like those are both like pretty active animals.
They are pretty active animals, but leopards are very calculating about their hunting, and they have a really high hit rate because they're very patient. And they'll just wait. They're ambush predators, so they'll just wait for long periods of time.
Aren't leopards the one?
There's a lot of Jinx, you go for it.
Oh, you said you go for it. Sorry, I was like, is that English? I just heard word. No, I mean, not that you were saying.
I've been drinking quite a bit. All the words are starting to blur.
No, I think you actually said it fine. It's just I had a moment where I was like, I don't understand English. Oh wait, there it goes, which is interesting. But no, I think leopards drag their prey into the tree as well, right? Mm-hmm. That denotes a certain level of intelligence also, because they want to like keep it away from predators. They want to like save it, which means they're future thinking. Makes sense.
I think they have like one of the highest success rates on the savannah. I think under lions are more successful just because they have the women. I mean, like male lions do nothing. It's all the female lions. They just stretch. Yeah.
You know why though? Did you know that
they're just there to fight and keep other male lions away? That's all.
Well, but also I heard. I mean, okay, this was on the internet, and it was just a meme that I saw. Maybe Nick, your crazy mind knows, but like when a lioness is in heat, apparently they'll have sex like 40 times a day or 60 times, and then like
lions have sex for like 7 hours.
What the hell? So I mean, it makes sense why he'd be tired if that's what he's doing all day.
It's a pretty messed up situation. Yeah, it doesn't look like they're being gentle with each other. That's for sure.
Those nature shows are always. I always didn't know, like, because you remember, like, if you're watching a nature show with your parents, that's happening.
The lions right now, because
no, it's just that the males will kill the females if the females aren't careful, because like they grab them by the back of the neck, and then they're digging their claws into their abdomens. So
that's just two wild lions. Y'all need to take it down.
Hey, look, they've been doing it for millions of years. I'm sure they're fine. I'm just saying.
Hey, man, if you look at praying mantises, it just flips the script. All of a sudden, there's just some guy without a head.
So what you're saying is, if someone chooses lion as their night, now what is it? Night Nahwal, yeah. Then be careful, because they're in some kinky stuff.
Yeah, it's all good. Just make sure you bite back, I guess, right?
I don't think my butterfly is much. Butterfly versus lion, it's not gonna go well.
Yeah.
Hey, just try to bite, all right? Just do your
butterflies don't have teeth.
Right. They have little stupid tongues.
They do. They really do. We're growing monarchs right now. Yeah. So one of them has a broken wing. We can't set it free. So we know way too much about this thing now. It's pretty funny.
And we have a deformed butterfly. It's it's fun. So I don't really have a whole lot more I wanted to bring up with you guys, but obviously I did want to talk a little bit about doppelganger. Most notably, doppelgangers are unrelated lookalikes, or they call them identical strangers. Just to bring in a little bit of like the spooky and bizarre.
Natalie Portman and her husband.
Are they doppelgangers of each other?
No, well, no. I saw something that said Natalie Portman and her husband. There's like a picture of some couple from the 1800s, and they look exactly the same, and the professions were like exactly reversed or something weird. It was really weird.
Oh no!
It might suggest that they are like 300 years old.
Don't you understand that the elite have understood and learned immortality for hundreds of years?
That's right.
I want some of that. Shoot. Tell them to share.
Well, then you got to become elite. I don't know. You got to fucking gut somebody or something to get into the club. But
okay, let me just go change my thoughts and it'll magically happen. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Manifest it. You'll be a part of the club in no time.
There it is.
Well, there's some cultures that believe seeing your doppelganger will cause the death of one of you.
That is a schoolyard belief. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it is.
I learned that on the schoolyard.
I think every kid learned that. I think it's one of those old Germanic folk tales that are meant to scare children.
Doppelganger.
Mm-hmm. Or it's if you're not a good child, you get replaced by a doppelganger, and you'll go somewhere bad, and then the doppelganger will live your life.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect form of the shadow. That once you come, maybe you didn't, not believe's the right word, you've neglected your shadow, whatever that means to you. And then you did it for the longest time, and it has taken such a big personification that it embodies all of you. That's what the doppelganger is.
Right. It takes over, kind of like the Hyde thing again. Well, it also makes me wonder that if by creating your own persona, since we're talking about duality and sort of dualism a little bit, do you think that you're sort of generating your antithesis out there in the world by solidifying your own persona?
Yes.
This is very much Everything Everywhere All at Once, one of our sister shows. Did a review of this amazing movie. So sad I'm not a part of that show, because I could talk about that for hours. But I mean, what I liked about it, and spoiler alert, I'll talk about it for the next 10 seconds, which is to say that what she does affects other realities. So every time she failed in one universe, another Evelyn got the thing that she didn't want. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, when you start thinking about the potentiality of multiverses and you think about yourself in each of those universes, if that were a thing, then yeah, you'd have tons of doppelgangers. But I guess a doppelganger also should be living in your universe, right? Like, because that's where it would affect you.
I'm just thinking more about like the concept that we've been talking about this counterpart, this counterpart aspect, since the alter ego, at least I think that we've agreed that there is it has to contain certain aspects of the self in order to be an alter ego. And interestingly enough, just before I gloss over that comes from the ancient Egyptian concept of the shadow, called Shut. Which is the silhouette or the shadow that is cast upon something, and they say their belief is that the shadow always contains a level of quality that the cast or that is that of the thing that is creating the shadow, so that like a statue shadow still has a qualia of statue, just as the shadow. So yeah, that's where I get like this concept of like the counterparts and stuff.
I'm thinking right now. Still has the shadow of the original thing.
Yeah, because it has the same form, but the details are a little different.
Well, yeah, and like I'm just thinking about forms, and again with relationship, because now you've got the source, what's you've got the alter ego, the shadow that's that's like a clone of you, and then you got the relationship of those, but then you've also got like Plato's little things looking at your stuff. Shadow. Yeah, where I'm just thinking about like the world perceiving.
You're missing the factor of the sun.
There's
depending on where the sun is, the shadow is different, right?
That's so true too. That's very true.
Bringing up multiple shapes of the self.
Right, and that's quite just a literal representation of the passage of time. It goes back to the concept that we're talking about, that our alternate selves or alter egos can just be something that we project out into the future. And yeah, I don't know if you've ever done that before, where I think most people have experienced this in some level or another, where you say, in this amount of years, I want to do X, Y, and Z, whatever that thing is.
The 5-year plan.
5-year plan. Yeah, right. Exactly.
I've had enough ex-girlfriends' mothers hate me because I didn't have
right. Yeah. I was never good at answering that question.
Yeah. Every time I made a 5-year plan, it was like a 5-year disappointment plan. So I was like, I'm not making plans anymore. I'm done.
Well, that's kind of interesting in and of itself. Do you think that there is? I mean, I'm sure there are people who have made the 5-year plan and executed it to the T, but I would think that there at least has to be a little bit of variation that they weren't anticipating.
Okay. I can't go on too much. Don't let me talk on this longer than a minute. But there's an account that I follow, and I don't follow anymore, but they shared this 24-year-old who she was talking about how like everything she wanted, she got. And she's just going on about how like it was all about her approach and her vibe. And, I have a certain issue with the manifestation kind of philosophy. On the one hand, I understand that without vision, you can't achieve much, right? Like you have to have vision to propel you, imagination, creativity, that kind of stuff, and fortitude, etc. But to credit just that with like all the things that she was saying, I remember like wanting to write the account and just being like, this is like pretty soon in my head, I had this whole essay going about like anti-manifestation or whatnot. And I was like, don't do it. Don't respond. You're going to be crazy. But
yeah, because girls have commodified that into just woo-woo BS that you put on Instagram. You said 1 minute. All right. Enough.
Yep. Enough. Look at that. No. You finger wagged.
I'm saying yes, because I think that you're actually bringing up a better point. you know, like I wonder if you could use the alter ego to help get you to that point instead of this concept of manifestation, which I think is cringe anyways. Would you be able to create an alter ego as a vehicle to get to you to that destination? So saying like, what's that?
Only if you manifest it first.
Right. Of course, you do have to create the alter ego. But I think that manifestation is such a vague concept and thing that we could just slap it on anything, and that would be like, I manifest it. But I think that the creation of an alter ego, somebody who can handle the task, might be a little bit more specific than just saying like, I just brought all of this into existence. Well, I doubt that very much. You can think really hard about stuff and it just doesn't fall out of the air. You do have to sort of alter or tailor your perspective or your perception in order to get those things done.
Yeah, and so like to that part of why I was laughing, because it's like the 5-year disappointment plan, but I can laugh about it because it was more about the things you wanted at year 1 changed at year 5. And so once you got the thing that you thought you wanted or whatever, it's like, well, that's not exactly what I wanted after all, you know?
Right.
Which is informative. I mean, but that's the thing too, where it's kind of funny because that concept of know thyself, you know, when you know yourself, I'm thinking about like, there's an art to that. You're creating who you are every day that you're living your life, right? And so like an artist trying to draw a chair, there's that example where you draw the chair or you draw the space around the chair. And I think that for the alter ego, it's kind of the space around the chair where you have yourself, but you can also know yourself by knowing what's opposite to you, which can sometimes be easier to identify.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I would definitely agree with all of that.
Thank you.
For sure. I think that we can probably end it up here. There is a little bit of psychology going on with this stuff too. I was trying to read like if there were studies, but I think a lot of people think that utilizing an alter ego in order to overcome obstacles might be a little bit dicey for people who don't have solid footing. So they don't necessarily recommend it as a best practice, but it has been used to help people overcome phobias and obstacles before in therapeutic settings, which I find interesting because, you know, think about like, okay, you're creating this new person who isn't afraid of X or Y or Z. What does that look like? And then, you know, sort of putting yourself in that position to feel those, or I guess not feel those feelings, right?
That's why cults will often give you a new name or, you know, change your identity. Because again, it's that core vision of yourself that can kind of like lead to stuff. But also too, you were mentioning alter ego used to help people overcome stuff. We were watching that Netflix show, Snowflake Mountain, I think. And they take these kids that, you know, are kind of just coasting through life, maybe according to their loved ones. And so they take them out camping and they have them do different challenges. And there was one episode where the coaches were saying like, give yourself a different name and different alter ego and try to vision that. And for a lot of them, you could see them shift when they just changed their name and explained why they chose that name, which is kind of sweet.
Yeah.
I think you're getting very close to the crux of the research. I think with inside of everybody, there's a sort of disassociation engine that you can use to disconnect yourself from, like, without a lack of a better word, yourself, and build alter egos. And how much you use that and to what extent defines the way you use and recover from this alter ego sort of thing. Everybody has it. I think everybody can. I think everybody has more than one ego within them, or to relax the problem like a subpersonality. There are psychologists that would tell you that you are actually a series of subpersonalities.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone has a vote, and the decision that you make is some sort of decision within this committee of sub-selves. And the notion of how to build
psycho-communism.
A little bit. I think about it as more as like a psycho-democracy.
Yeah, that's better. I like that better.
Yeah, like everybody has a vote, and you have to tally the votes. You can add an executive branch. You do whatever you like. They say it's harder to govern yourself than a community. And if you find yourself at the point of finding multiple ultra egos, you can definitely build a committee and build your own internal government that you listen to make all your decisions. But these ideas, I feel like, are very dangerous.
Yeah, and I think that's why psychologists are very reticent to utilize this method in any sort of therapeutic way, unless it's maybe a last resort or something like that.
Well, even like Jungian, the notion that like letting the shadow in is also very dangerous too. And you like, I don't know what the crux of this. I feel like the crux is that we really don't know ourselves at all ever until we're placed into the situation that demands us to do something, and then you can start to actualize this. But if you can start to imagine these certain ideas, you could build certain alter egos to respond to these certain situations. It's like running a drill inside your house in case somebody breaks in. Right? Where are the exit points? How do you get out? Blah, blah, blah. I'm doing that over and over, but in a social sense, or like a personality sense of how you would respond or how you want to respond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see where it becomes compartmentalizing and then might be severely detrimental to the psyche.
The discovery of the disassociation engine, that thing, I feel like is can be very important for all humans, because then they can be adaptable to any role because they can disassociate themselves. But the research on that is non-existent or few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got a lot of stuff that's coming up while you guys were talking. And I think it's really interesting because, okay, so I would encourage everybody listening right now to listen to James Baldwin's The Struggle of the Artist for Integrity. I believe it's a 30-minute lecture that he gives. I don't know if it's a lecture per se, maybe just an essay reading. But what's really interesting is he talks towards the end about how there can be events in our lives, and that most people don't really have a choice to linger on about the big questions and that come up for being a human. You know, why are we here? Who am I? What does it all mean? What is the good life? All those questions. They have to go to work. They have to sit in traffic. They have to take care of their families. There's the time element that can't be dedicated to that because their primary vocation might be raising a family or working or something like that. And he was talking about how certain artists, they don't have a choice to go on. Like they can't look away, that they have to lean in to that event, that experience. And that's what he was saying, like, or you've heard people who say, like, what's the value of poetry and art? You know, it's because if somebody dies, we usually turn to poetry and art to sort of find some sort of meaning. But if you're doing that all the time, then you're just navel gazing or Hamlet syndrome or whatnot. So I think it's interesting because this notion of Jung and talking about multiple layers to a personality, like Mike was saying, I think it's really interesting when people have strokes or brain damage that reveals how one person can have different multiple personalities that are coming out or that shift dramatically, and what that means to our experience of ourselves. But then I also think it's interesting that we can indulge that or just push it away and carry on. And I think that for those of us who push it away and go carry on, you're ignoring that sense, that question of like, what is this self? What am I? And you can ask yourself on like a Tuesday or a nice little podcast chat. But but there are people out there that are like researching that question and writing about it and really into it. And it's good to see what they come back with and what they can share. So I don't know. Did that make sense? It made sense in my head.
It did, but I just don't know. Was it in reference to something we were saying? Because you said this was giving me a whole bunch of ideas. So I was trying to see what you were saying that made you think of that thing.
It was, you know what it was? It was that Mike was talking about psychology and how they've talked about there can be multiple layers to a personality. Right. And we think our personality identifies us, that's what makes us unique. But if there's so many different layers, what is it? Which one is it? What are we? And that's where I was just thinking that kind of question, it's like a universal question, and you can think about it all day or you can set it down. And with alter egos, it just makes me think about it in different ways. Like, could an alter ego just be one of those sort of adaptive personalities or something like that?
I mean, I think it can be, but it's more like, no, it definitely can be. Think about it like if to get really reductionist, right? Like our brain just fires electrical impulses. So what you're doing is firing different patterns of neurons to display a different personality. So your like these layers of the human or the self are just different firing circuits that can give you the most satisfactory outcome out of a situation.
I guess maybe I should work there's two other examples that maybe will show where I'm coming at. So I guess the first one would just be like the qualia of the thing. Like there's a lot of philosophical discussion about how to accurately describe something, because, let's try to
we know. Trust
yeah,
me.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. I
So I'm just
had
saying
to comment
that
about how I was worried about that at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But if you're talking to somebody with alter egos, is there actually any qualia, or is the qualia the adaptability to go into any ego?
Right, and that's what I'm kind of scratching at, is that like if you get struck by lightning, for example, a lot of people's personalities will change. Heart transplant, personality will change. But if you ask me to describe another person, oftentimes I will use their personality as a key qualia that defines that person. And I'm sure that we ourselves regard ourselves as outgoing or not, funny or not, smart, etc. I don't know that smart's a personality thing, but what I mean to say is that if personality is something that can be changed with a lightning bolt or a new heart, then what was it to begin with, and how good of a qualia marker is it to define who we are?
Ooh, so then that implies that the qualia of personality is the observation on the thing. I.e., if I behave smart, then you think I'm smart. If I behave dumb, then you think I'm dumb.
Well, I said smart. It's not a personality aspect. So maybe go with outgoing and ask me again.
Okay, so then you've always seen me very not outgoing, right? Like I don't.
No, actually, you can be quite sociable, my friend.
Hypothetically speaking, let's say like I'm a recluse and a shut-in, and I'm never outgoing. But I only do that in front of you. In front of anybody else, I'm very outgoing. But in front of you, or like you can argue like a larger network of friends, right? This is like the George Costanza worlds are colliding sort of thing where different people come together. But outside of that, like, you can display an alter ego that's like, I'm not very outgoing in front of you, but I'm outgoing in front of somebody else.
Right, exactly. And then now you're getting into the problem of like the artist versus the audience and who's defining the thing. I mean, again, like Nick was saying, we could be sitting here all day talking about stuff. But what I do think is interesting is that when you have the ego and the alter ego, you also have the space between them. And it makes me think about how like Rumi's poems can be really abstract, and yet it can hit a truth closer than if you spent all day trying to use words to describe something. So I do think that like with an alter ego, it gives you maybe like a foil, and like in stories, a foil is something to bounce off of, and that helps sort of sculpt a character.
Okay. So then you think these alter egos collapse into the same personality space?
Oh no, I don't know. I just think that alter ego is a nice inlet with which to think about some of these larger questions that are unanswerable.
Yeah, well, of course, the idea is that you are looking at the, you're creating the opposite to understand the thing, right? So, in order to understand yourself further, you create something that would be an opposite, an alter ego. Now, of course, you could have a more parallel alter egos than others, and there are varying degrees to what you want to do with that, but. Like you can easily start to understand yourself more by creating an opposite you and looking at that person and looking at that archetype, and then sort of understanding yourself a little bit more, maybe even taking from these archetypes or these constructs. If you have something that you find desirable in a construct, maybe you find a way to integrate that into your person. And then bit by bit, you're taking all of these personas, like, you guys have said, and you're becoming this amalgam of multiple alter egos. Everything that you've decided that you like because it's something that you feel like you need in your personality.
Let's take care. I'll take the Sartre argument that self-made mirrors are made of broken glass. The thing that you reflect into may have some sort of biased opinion on itself, because it's reflecting on itself. So you're not, like, you might think this thing is lacking, but really it's not. So there's like, just take caution when you're diving into alter egos and you're all alone trying to discern what to add and what not to add. Because you're biased in your own reflection of yourself. Because you're the thing that's observing the reflection is not perfectly objective.
Oh, you're just like all the layers tonight.
Yeah, right? Hey, I still got your on being a nothingness, so this is all your fault, really.
Oh, you're welcome. You are welcome.
I think I'm going to end it here, though. I think we're good for that. I'm done with all of my notes and stuff. So,
yeah, this kicks into a very strange place as a human being, man. Because if you organize yourself and all your alter egos properly, you could pop in and out of them. And it's not like a dualistic sense. It's not like, I'm Batman, and then that's it. There could be a Green Lantern in you. There could be a Superman in you. There could be a Martian Manhunter. There could be a whole bunch of stuff in you. But
hot dog finger you.
Yeah, hot dog finger you. There could be a million things inside of you that you just don't know yet, but if you can figure right, you can slide back into those alter egos, and that's where I think that's where the gem is. It's like, in a more realistic sense, it's like, I'm not really I don't really stand up for myself, but I have this alter ego that has more confidence, and you'll be able to slide back and forth in between that as its pros and cons. But this topic gets very heady very quick.
Oh, yeah, because even at the fundamental level, before you start acting, you're still taking a moment to pause and say, I'm actuating this self.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One closing question for you guys. Are you the alter ego of somebody else?
Nah, No, Nick, why? My brain's tired. How could you?
It's not that crazy to think about.
Could you
I asked because it to me, like, if I'm thinking about that question, I wonder if am I living the actualized life of somebody else or an ideal life of somebody else? And is that something that you want? Would you want to be an alter ego for somebody else? In the sense that it might be something somebody is aspiring to be.
Yeah, sure, why not? I'm living the alter ego of first year community college, Mike, right?
There you go. Yeah.
I'm a paid computer programmer. I get paid to daydream. I get paid to code. I get paid to architect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that thing I dreamed of when I first thought of computer science.
Right.
So yeah, I'm very much an alter ego of myself. But yeah, there's no problem in idealizing that and attempting to actualize that, even if you fail. As long as it's positive in your own sense with like regards to liberty, that you're not actually harming anybody else. You could argue that I harmed somebody by getting a job because that person didn't get the job.
You took it from somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, but in those cases, you got to give yourself a break and use another alter ego to fight for yourself. Like, no, I deserve this job. But yeah, no, I'm probably I'm the alter ego of myself over a decade ago.
Nice. I like it. Ayla, what do you think? No?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, in a lot of ways, Mike is right. I've gone through so many different evolutions of myself that I'm an alter ego already, in a ton of ways. But then it's like, to your question, I think you're like, now I need you to help me narrow it in because I'm thinking a little bit too boundless.
I guess if I wanted to simplify the question is, are you living a life that you would want to be? You know what I mean? Like if you were the different you, if you were some sort of alternate you looking at you, would you desire that?
I see. Yeah. Well, if you had asked me earlier this week or yesterday, no, but today, sure. Because I'm coming, for those of you who haven't been following the show, I've got a very long injury a severe injury that's been a long recovery. I'm in year 2, I finished a year. And so I think it's an interesting opportunity to both have an amazing pity party from time to time or demonstrate tremendous resilience in the face of obstacles. And so where I'm at is I have a couple plans for this hiatus, I'm calling it, and that makes me happy. So
yeah, and I think it's okay to vacillate. I think it's okay to vacillate about yourself and who you could be potentially, and all of that stuff. I think that's perfectly fine and healthy and something that we all deal with. We're all unsure at some point or another. And,
yeah.
Hey, the grass is always greener on the other side.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, I was thinking to myself, gosh, when I can drive again, I'm going to have to run errands again. And I used to hate errands, but now I'd give anything to do an errand. So, it's like
is big.
It really is. And I was thinking too, back to Rumi, it's this talking around a topic that can help you get the topic. So for instance, years ago, I was like, oh, I really want to play guitar, but did I do it? No. And I kept thinking, my alter ego plays guitar. I do not. And it's like, I'm finally sort of getting closer to that after so many Rumi type talking about it that I'm like starting to actually do it in the way that makes sense to me, the songs that I like, the style, etc. So, and there's like a bridging of the gap that happens that shapes something new that's better.
Those are all little micro revolutions in the evolution of your being. So
there it is. Revolutionary, baby. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, guys. Well, I think we can wrap it up here, unless you have anything you wanted to leave off with.
Yeah.
Very,
You know what you
very
reminded me
eloquent.
Oh my God, there's
a bit of I'm a reflection of President. No, just be very careful when you delve into this. If you're experimentally minded, because you'll set up situations to explore these alter egos. And from a scientist's point of view, you may bend or break certain laws, actual legal laws or laws of yourself. Just be very mindful at what you're doing. This is very, I would argue, like we're skirting along black magic, because if you discover the keys to your disassociation engine, then you'll be able to disassociate at any time and do anything, and that's terrifying. So
Yeah.
this is a very dangerous sort of just dangerous topic in my mind.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got the. I'm gonna get like a sound plug for Mike here. Be our intellectual hall monitor. When he gets worried about something, we'll just have a little siren that goes off. Do not try this at home. Do not try this at home. We're not trying to condone any sort of crazy.
We're trying to build
like
a sandbox in
officer.
the fifth dimension, and right now you want to leave the sandbox. I'm
Right.
like, no, don't leave.
Man.
Prepare your cosmic egg.
Prepare your cosmic egg.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the cosmic egg. You know, you were giving me Philip Seymour Hoffman vibes when you were like, because you know, he was in Along Came Polly, and he has to pretend to be Ben Stiller's character for a meeting, but he was really nervous. So in order to stall, he was like,
Oh man, you don't want to know about throat clearance. I know all about throat clearance.
the throat
All right.
clearing.
Now we're
It's
just
like the
making
Hulk.
noises. All right. we're done.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, it's just
Thank
sorry, but
you.
interestingly, Along Came Polly plays with the alter ego self too, because he's very risk averse, and he gets attracted to someone who's his opposite, and then he tries to become a different version of
Are
himself.
you really ending us on a Ben Stiller movie, Ayla? Good Lord.
Along Came
It was
Polly
a
is a great movie. There's a ferret
Stiller
in it.
movie. How dare
Hey,
you?
you guys. All right. Or
How
Dylan.
dare you? You gotta defend Ben Stiller the way you defend Adam Sandler. You gotta.
I don't.
I do love Adam Sandler movies.
You gotta push
The
back.
funny
on
ones
the
and the serious ones.
We're wrapping this up. I'm done with you guys. This is crazy. Anyways,
The music, say it ain't so.
we're playing us out right now. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate all of y'all. If you have any comments for us, please feel free to leave them down below. We just appreciate all of you guys out there for watching. Hope that you have a wonderful Friday night and a great weekend. And until next time, Cognonauts, you stay out there, and we will catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
Peace.
Ta-ta.
I think Toodles is better.
Toodles.